Hey there, today I'm going to be talking about the new Daredevil who is a leader, but not for the Defenders, and not for an affiliation I was ever expecting. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. Alright, so we are getting the corrupted Daredevil from the Shadowland storyline, which is pretty cool because he is the leader of the Hand, and we get ninjas, which are way cooler than pirates. And I'm actually really excited to build a team around his leadership, and I'll talk more about that at the end of the video a little bit, and maybe more if I do like a complete roster build out with what I'm thinking. I do also want to say here at the beginning, I'm saving Electra's review for another video because I think she is a just fascinating example when it comes to character design. So I want to take some dedicated time to talk about her in a different video in that particular light. So before we do get into Daredevil's card though, I want to give my usual shout outs to the guild sponsors, Tritex Games based over in the EU, and War Room Hobbies based here in Tennessee. Both are great local gaming stores that have game nights at their stores and are supporting and trying to build their local communities. So if you are already shopping online anyways, please consider using them as an option to support an LGS instead of just a big warehouse company somewhere. And to help beat those prices, I have some codes that will save you even more off of their already discounted prices. If you use the code TRITEXGGCP5 at checkout, you'll save an extra 5% off of Tritex's MCP selection. And if you check out at War Room Hobbies, you can use the code MCP2022 for an extra 10% off of your order, whether it is for MCP, Legion, or whatever else you're into. And even though we are in a weird window with nothing currently announced other than the Quinjet, it may not be a bad time to either finish painting what you have or go pick up that Rivals box or anything else that you may have skipped over. If you are already shopping from your LGS though, that's awesome. We all encourage you to keep supporting them. That's great. But if you're wanting a way to support the Guild's videos or podcasts, check out our Patreon page. For as little as $1 a month or $12 in a year, you help us continue to put out content for Marvel Crisis Protocol as a podcast and here on YouTube. We also have a monthly giveaway thanks to Tritex. All you need to do to enter there is be subscribed to the channel and leave a comment on a video the same month that video was released. And with all of that talked about, let's get into Daredevil. And I'm going to do something weird here and talk about his leadership first before the rest of his card. I think that it shapes a lot about the character, similar to how Steve's leadership works so well with the rest of his own card. Shadow War is a criminal syndicate leadership that says when an allied character attacks an enemy character holding or contesting an objective, it can reroll one of its attack dice. As well, this ability can reroll failure results. So this leadership's really good, and it's going to make some characters hit well above their weight class. So first of all, this isn't limited in any capacity outside of that the target of the attack has to be contesting or holding an objective. So you can keep using this reroll whether it is your first or sixth attack. So some characters are going to take advantage of this much more so than others. The other bit of good news with this is the characters you are most often wanting to attack are the ones that are holding or contesting objectives. So that way you can make them no longer be scoring those points. Now it does let you reroll a skull as well, but only one, and it's the reroll from the leadership. So just because Baron Zemo is near doesn't mean you will get to reroll all of the skulls, similar to how Miles' leadership works. So if you end up with multiple rerolls, make sure to declare them wisely. And with all of that in mind now, let's take a look at Shadowland Daredevil, who has the alter ego of Matt Murdock. He has 6 stamina, moves medium, is size 2 and 4 threat. He has 3 attacks. The first one is his physical coordinated strike. It has a range of 2, strength of 5, and costs nothing. It will, as most builders do, give him power equal to the damage dealt. As well though, after the attack is resolved, if there are currently no grunts on the board under your control, you may place some hand ninjas within range 1 of Daredevil with an activated token. They are now part of your squad, And the neat thing about the ninjas is when they are placed on the board via an attack, they get to make a free range 2 attack with a strength of 4. So really, if the ninjas aren't already on board, Daredevil's strike begins to look like a 6-die builder followed by a 5-die attack because of that reroll that his leadership gives. Now, you won't be able to do this for every attack, but it's a pretty good starting point. Next up is Baton Snare, and its uses may be a little bit niche, but it's still one more tool for Matt to have access to. It is a range 4 attack with a strength of 4 and costs nothing. The attack ignores line of sight and cover, which is cool, but even better in my opinion is that there is a free advance short toward the target character before damage is dealt. So if you need to make a move back onto an objective, or get closer to another side of the board, and a short move will work for the job at hand, why not also get a free attack at an enemy? Something worth noting here is that before damage is dealt means that the calculate successes or failures step will have already happened. So you won't be moving into range of any annoying defensive superpowers like Martial Artist on your way in. His final attack is Demon's Devastation. It has a range of 2, strength of 7 for 3 power, which, first of all, isn't a terrible rate. Secondly, it gets even better if there are ninjas within range 2 of the target character, because you get to add 2 more dice to the attack roll. So a 9-dice attack that's pretty easy to set up if Daredevil starts the turn out next to some enemies for just 3 power. And what's more, if you roll a wild, Daredevil can then vanish and place himself within range 2 of his current location. So a pretty nice range of attacks, I dare say. From here we have 3 innate powers, Radar Sense, which lets him add blanks to his successes when defending against energy or physical attacks, Stealth, which means he can't be the target of an attack outside of range 3, and Wall Crawler. There are some notable changes though on his injured side. His stamina goes up to 7, he loses a point of physical defense but gains it back in his Mystic. Demon's Devastation, speaking of, becomes a Mystic attack, but loses the Vanish trigger, which is not a big loss considering that it can basically gain, because the last change is the addition of a new superpower. There is only the Beast. It is active and it costs 3 power, and says the next time Demon's Devastation is used this activation, its range becomes Area 2 instead of just 2. So sure, that's 6 power, but Daredevil isn't spending power on anything else. And in return, you're getting an Area 2 attack with a strength of 7 to 9 dice. Alright, so pros and cons time. First, Daredevil is a pretty tanky individual. He is Black Panther tough on his front side, which is really nice. I've been a recent big fan of Black Panther, so knowing that Daredevil's at least that durable on the front side, being able to count blanks is going to be really nice. And then while he does lose a physical defense on the backside, he also gains an extra hit point and still counts blanks for energy and physical attacks. That alone is a really nice starting point. As for his damage output on its own, it's really not bad. His builder is very basic other than the ninjas. The baton adds a little bit of extra movement, but not really there for damage output by any means. His spender, though, 3 powers for 7 die is a pretty standard rate for a character spender. Making it 3 power for a 9 dice attack, which again is going to be pretty easy to do, is really nice though. And as long as you are playing with his leadership ability, the rerolls on offense help keep him a bit above average compared to most other 3-threat characters, and puts him in league at least with most of the damage dealing 4-threat characters. Where he is a bit weaker for a 4-threat is in his lack of control, conditions, and really he still isn't that mobile of a character. Don't get me wrong, Baton Hook is better than nothing, but the advance you get has to be in the direction of the character you attack, making it pretty limited in what you can do. But if you just got pushed off a point short and you can attack somebody that's on that same point to get back to it, it's still better than nothing. But really at 4-threat you can pretty typically hope for at least some form of a push or a throw, And the characters that don't have that usually feel a bit more dangerous. But then there are also typically glass cannons. Daredevil is a weird in-between of a decent brawler who is also quite durable. Now, a lot of his sins here can also be forgiven because he does bring grunts onto the table like Fury and others. He can't just be judged on his character card alone. But one thing I will say I do like about Murdoch's card is that there is a lot less of his synergies are tied into his ninjas, and they're a lot easier to get into play compared to Fury. So let's talk about these ninjas real quick. Hand ninjas have 2 stamina, move medium on a 50mm base, and are size 2. They have 1 physical and energy defense, and have 2 mystic defense, which is on par for what we know with grunts, so there's nothing really to judge too much here. They have 1 attack that's physical, ninja weapons. It has a range of 2, strength of 4, and costs no power. If you manage to get 2 wilds on the attack, though, the enemy will be bleeding. We do have 3 superpowers on the ninjas. The first is Ninja Vanish. It is an active one that costs no power, but does cost an action. If you use it, you can move 1 asset or civilian token being held by this character to another allied character that is within range 3. A character cannot hold more tokens than allowed by the crisis due to this superpower. Then the ninjas will vanish and are KO'd. So this can be really good as a way to go pick up an objective and move it onto a more durable character. But the way I see myself using this more often than not is actually going to be on turn 1. That may seem weird, but on an objective like Hammers, where the first hammer is really just a weird detour for a character to go and pick up, and they don't really get the most out of that first move, the ninjas can pick it up and hand it off to the person you want the hammer on, which saves them a power and gives them that full move once they start getting into the rest of the board. And it's also just really easy to let the ninjas return to the field during round 2 when Daredevil uses his coordinated strike, which is relevant because then the second power comes into effect. Ninja Ambush says that when this character is placed onto the battlefield as a result of a coordinated strike or ancient throwing blades, it may immediately make an attack, which really makes them not being on the board and getting removed feel just fine. Sure, getting 2 attacks instead of 1 out of them would be great, or having them run to the back with an objective, but the worst case is still a pretty good one. The last power worth mentioning is the Hand. It says that this character cannot contest secure objectives, but it doesn't have to pay a power to interact with civilian or asset tokens. This does mean that they can still contest an extract objective, like the Researcher from Research Station. Now, all that's good, I guess. I don't know. Grunts are still in this kind of weird, mysterious place, and I think once we start seeing more, we can begin to really understand what they're capable of. So all in all, Daredevil, or Shadowland Daredevil rather, as an individual is going to make for a good brawler, but he definitely feels like he's going to need to be supported by other pieces. Characters like Shuri and Medusa leap to mind as some good control options that also offer up more rerolls and consistency to the team. And speaking of teams, I do think that Shadowland Daredevil is going to be a character that mostly sticks to his home affiliation. Whether that is being a durable body for Kingpin's leadership and bringing in those sneaky ninjas to help with some of the crazy legacy virus plays, or just have them contest on the Researcher as 2 healthy bodies is crazy, or just under his own banner with some extra consistency for himself and his ninjas, especially if you're able to make his spender an area attack, because then he gets rerolls on all of it and it just gets really good. Now, if you want to build a team around this leadership, I suggest trying to squeeze the most as you can out of the rerolls. And from what I can tell, there are 2 major ways to do that. Either load your team up with characters that need certain results to trigger effects on the attacks, as you can try to reroll your way into those. And full credit of that idea goes to Charles from the Omnis Protocols. I thought it was a pretty cool idea and worth sharing. My idea, on the other hand, is to just use that leadership as many times as you possibly can by making more attacks. I'll probably put out a review of the roster I am brewing after a few more games, now that Daredevil has actually been released. But the basic premise is to get as many characters with rapid fire, beams, or flurry attacks into the list and just grind my opponent out with multiple consistent attacks. So, excited to share that with you all here in a couple of weeks. And that is all I have for you today. If you don't already have a comment for the giveaway entry, let me know the top 3 characters you want to try with Daredevil's leadership, and I will start bringing that to my local game night. As always, if you have enjoyed my thoughts and are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for a weekly dose of MCP content in the form of reviews, battle reports, and you can also find the Gamers Guild podcast on several different podcast platforms. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.